Introduce yourself, Jason.
I'm Jason with Dog's Red Wine. This is my buddy Bart.
This is your buddy Bart.
This is Bart. This is Frankie.
Frankie
He'll sit up here all day.
He will.
So welcome. I'm Jason from Dog's Red Wine.
I'm John Guinevere. What a week, huh?
Yeah.
So right now I've got my glasses on again. My Meta glasses.
Right? We tried them last week.
I've had them for about 8 days now.
Yeah.
And I drove with them this morning, and I was able to do a live broadcast. It's just a little bit shaky, which you understand.
But you were driving, right?
It's a 5G connection or whatever.
Oh, sure.
You know, around here with all the trees and everything. And it does do some neat things, like, of course, you can talk and hear when you're on the phone. That's nice.
Right.
And they went dead on me, and I was like, well, what am I going to do? And I just hit the speaker button. Everything was fine. And also, you can look at things and say, "Hey, Meta, what am I looking at?" Did I tell you this last time?
You showed me when you were looking in your living room at the cameras and stuff.
Oh, yeah, it's pretty cool. It won't do people though.
Oh, okay.
It even says, because I took it said, "Who am I looking at?" It says, "I'm sorry, I'm not allowed to identify people."
Oh, okay.
So
interesting.
that makes sort of sense.
Sure.
I heard some MIT guys got around that. And they were,
Nice.
They've adjusted them, but overall, so far so good.
I'm excited for you to take him to Puerto Rico because you can do the language translator.
Oh,
and it's
really?
supposed to be, so if you download Spanish to your phone, you're supposed to be able to have live translations. So, I mean, I'd like to know how it works.
Yeah, that would be cool. Yeah,
because
I'm sure you hear it.
Right, but it's supposed to be like you're supposed to hear it in English if they're talking in Spanish.
Cool.
And it's supposed to be live. So I wonder if there's a delay.
I actually, I wanted to say where I was because it'll sound bad. It wasn't, but they had it on their phone, and they had me talk into it, and they listened to what I was saying.
They even have something better, and it's actually really good on Google Translate. If you hit conversation, open up Google Translate, hit conversation, and I don't think it reads it to you, but it'll type it out in text as like you're talking in Spanish, I'm talking in English. It gives you the English version and me the Spanish version. I've done that with a bartender in Mexico City one time because he didn't speak any English.
And you can get what you wanted to drink.
Right.
Yeah. Speaking of drinking.
Oh, okay.
So this one, okay, I'm going to give you one tip.
Oh, I get it.
You're not gonna choose the right variety on this one.
Okay.
It's impossible.
I'm not a sommelier, so.
Well, yeah, but you are pretty good at
I
tasting wines and. Frankie wants to say,
right.
"No, you don't, Frankie. Dogs don't drink wine
unless it's Dog's Red Wine."
Yeah. Cheers. Well,
Cheers.
Welcome everybody. This is our tradition that we start the show off with a little taste.
Yeah.
Then keep going.
We alternate back and forth. So this one is John's choosing of the red.
I've never bought this before. I was curious about it, and I'm not sure. I think I may have had other flavors in my mouth. I'm not sure. What do you think?
I like it.
Do you?
And interesting enough, it has a. I'm trying to see if it's the smell or the taste.
It's going to say whatever you say on the back of the bottle.
Okay, let's see what it says.
And it's not ESP. He does have a good. He took a wine class in college. Would you take one online or something?
No, it was Master. It's called Masterclass. It's an app, a paid app, and I think it's like $200 a year, so it's not cheap. It's a nice, but they have A-list current celebrities and people in the know. And so James Suckling, the wine rater, did like a 12-part class on wine tasting. And it also allowed you to get into his tasting events, which are normally at least $100 for like 75% off or something
cool.
like that. So I went to one in Chicago and one in Miami, actually.
So he taught you what to look for.
Right, right.
So did you find that once you learned more about wine, you started appreciating wine more?
Of course, yeah. It
You
really
got into it more. It's more interesting.
Right.
Were you just a casual wine drinker before you started doing that, or?
I would say yes. Like I didn't really know even what to go to the store and buy. I'd have to like Google it, and then I found the Vivino app. It's VIV, or whatever, Vivino. And then you can just take a picture of the label, and it gives you user rankings. So generally, try and get something around, as close to 4 as you can get it. It does go over 4, but I haven't had a lot of wines that have been like over 4, 4.1. That's
here.
funny.
Go away. Go lie down.
He'll start chattering his teeth.
This
here
dog's red wine is getting out of hand.
But so yeah, it gave me appreciation for wine and what to look for, and then be interested. And then I had my RV trip, and I spent several months out on the West Coast and hit a lot of different vineyards in Washington, Oregon, and then down through California, even down through Southern California.
When I was a kid, we used to go. I wouldn't drink,
Right.
but any of my parents' friends who came in,
Right.
we would go on trips to Napa, and I can tell you it changed a lot. When they went, everything was free. It was tastings weren't that big a deal,
Right.
And then over 20, 30 years, they put the Napa train in,
Yeah.
and the restaurants really
Right,
took off. One of
right.
the top restaurants in the country.
Yeah.
Is in
What's the name of that one? Do you know?
the French Laundry.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, is that where the governor was caught? Not wearing a
don't know.
mask?
I don't know.
Yeah,
Which governor? The current governor
of California. Gavin Newsom.
Okay. Oh yeah.
Everybody's wearing masks. He's in there drinking some wine.
Yeah.
And he came out with, well, we had special conditions. Sure you did.
Right.
Yeah.
So let me take a stab at this one. Like you said, I probably won't get the varietal, but let's see if I can get.
I've seen it, and actually it is getting better as we sip away.
So if on first guess, and I would say it's an Italian Chianti. That would be my guess. But
You're totally off. You're in the wrong country, the wrong variety.
Is it French then?
Nope.
Is it U.S.?
Mm-hmm.
It is U.S., huh?
It's a fairly well-known area, or they always say valleys, in California.
Yeah. So, and it's California then. So
It is.
I was going to try and guess between the Willamette Valley and...
Well, this is probably hard to identify because it's a blend.
Okay.
So the cool thing about a blend, if you're a winemaker,
Right.
is if you tasted it and it was like too sweet, you can go, oh, I can throw in another
Right.
sour variety and take the sweetness down. So in essence, when you do a blend, it's another step of a sommelier or of a winemaker, because now he's like playing with the chemistry.
And is
balance
it
the
blended
flavor.
from the same vineyard?
Yes.
Okay.
You're never gonna get this. And
Well, how about a year? How about a year?
go for it.
I'm going to go with 2019.
2021.
Okay.
Close.
Okay.
Pretty young, but
Yeah.
not bad, and that's probably because of the blending. It was like, I don't know, like $28 for the wine. I think it was on sale, so it might be.
Huh.
And I guess there'll probably be tariffs out of California soon to the rest of us.
Everything out of California.
Trump will start tariffs on California to pay for their idiocracy.
And their orange juice is going to get expensive unless we import from Florida.
So I've seen it's decoy.
Oh, okay.
And I've seen it a bunch of times, but I've never tried it.
It's just a red blend, Alexander Valley. So I'm not even familiar with that area, Alexander Valley. I'm going to read the back here.
So I'm going to tell you a little bit about this little box.
Okay.
It's not an advertisement, but next door they moved in, and they moved in with 2 big Great Danes and added one. Why, I don't know. Who gets a third Great Dane is beyond me. Bart is half Great Dane. That's enough for me. Half is too much. And so these dogs, they don't just bark. 3 of them, and it sounds like they're actually standing here in the living room when they bark. And I'll be damned if every time I don't take a nap, like I just fall asleep and you know. So there were this box. It was like 2 for $22, and hung one. This one works. We hung it up right by the fence, and the reason they did it, I'd probably trip and break my neck, and put up. And the dogs came out, and they went run like 3 times, a little short, and they could hear it. It's like this sonic reply.
Yeah.
And they walked away.
And so it just doesn't hurt them. It's just like
No,
it's just like annoys
in fact,
them.
they're barking on the other side of the yard. They got a big backyard.
Yeah.
So I'm sure the other neighbors, on eBay right now, wanting to buy one of these.
So yeah, it's.
So if you have neighbors that have obnoxious dogs, now actually I put this one in the front, and it stopped working. And it turned out they knocked it down.
Oh, the dogs did?
Yeah.
So they know how to get around it.
Yeah, hopefully. I actually saw a video where the dog moved the live camera so he could get something off the counter.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Oh, you're funny.
They're sneaky
You're
guys.
funny, Frankie. So he's so excited to be on TV.
Yeah. Should we... You can pull.
Sure.
So this is a headline from today or yesterday. Or
all right.
Yeah.
So, all right. Getting old. I gotta put
Yeah, get all that.
Yeah. Ooh. Bill to ban trans athletes from girls and women's sports teams failed to advance in Senate. So
every single Democrat voted against. You can just drop it. Voted against keeping men out of women's sports.
They voted against keeping
against banning it. Yeah, every single Democrat.
Interesting.
Which is okay. When I was a kid, ERA, the Equal Rights Amendment, was huge, and that was all about women. And really, the whole feminist movement was about women and boss lady and everything else. And now all I have to do is say, I feel like a woman, and I get to, like, I mean, I can barely walk, and I can still beat the pulp out of anybody just about.
I have a issue with, people that were born male playing women's sports. I was just, we'll keep it local for a second. Lord's Athletic just won their first national title for their conference, first ever. I went to the game in Grand Rapids, Michigan last night, and first time ever they won. And it was a great game, and all the young women were, healthy athletes and stuff. But I mean, it's different. You can't mix men and women's sport, especially at the college level, or even worse if you go down into the
why
high
do
school
they
level.
want to? What?
Right.
Why? And not to mention, you spoil it for all these women,
Right.
Who a lot of them have been practicing
Their whole life.
sport for 12, 14
Yeah.
years,
Right.
and it's their ride to college or whatever.
Right.
And some boy who was scored
Identifies as
116th place
Yeah.
is now number one. Or they get on these basketball teams
Yeah.
and they just beat the crap.
Yeah.
You know, that's not a contact sport.
No.
Basketball is not a contact sport.
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, this is. It reminds me of a funny story in a way. So, when I was in college, my roommate was Native American, and he said that the reservation in that area would put together these sports teams to compete against the Special Olympics so they could win against the Special Olympics. And I'm like, how wrong is that? And he knew it was wrong too. I mean, he was kind of like couldn't believe it also. But I mean, what's the difference? I mean, it's unfair.
Right.
I'll just keep it at that.
Yeah,
it's
right,
unfair.
yeah.
It's
I mean,
unfair.
But why would you push for it? Why would you want?
Yeah.
I mean, you know, it was the party. You know, 10 years ago, I would say the Democrats, everything was about women.
Yeah.
And if you allow these trans men or men who identify as women, that's the only criteria. You've just taken all your arguments and decades of blah, blah, blah and flushed it down the toilet.
Yeah.
And why?
It doesn't make any sense to me. And
But let's
if you want to play sports in a gender you weren't born in, I mean, you know,
I would love
think
to be a
that's-
pro golfer. What a great life, you know, make a couple million a year, walk around beautiful golf courses. But I nothing. I can claim anything. Right? I'm Arnold Palmer. I feel like Arnold Palmer, but I'm still not going to play like Arnold Palmer.
Yeah.
He was a good golfer, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was.
I got the right name.
Yeah. Actually,
I'm not very good at sports. I didn't want to quote something.
I'm not a golfer, but I ended up staying at the Trump Hotel in Doral, Florida. And he has this beautiful spread out in Doral, 300 acres or something like that, several golf courses. And one of the villas was the Arnold Palmer villa. We stayed in the Gary, it's a famous golfer, but I'm not a golfer. Something Gary.
We're almost wearing the same color. We better start communicating on. People will be making fun of us.
Right.
I noticed you got black socks.
Yeah, I did. I at least put the black.
Hey, Molly! I heard you just entered the room. Molly lives over by you. You may not know Molly.
I don't know Molly.
Okay. As my friends get older and more live over in that neighborhood.
Yeah, right. So
When I got here, that's where all the old people live.
they still do. Yeah. I like this. It's a good one.
Yeah.
It's a good one. All right, your turn to pick out of that.
Okie doke. So this one is Bondi reveals FBI delivered truckload of Jeffrey Epstein files. Meanwhile, top bureau official resigns.
Oh, nice.
Okay, so it's funny. I was reading some press, right? Some press is like, oh, the top guy was fired because he said he was going to dig his heels in. Not really. That's not.
He was
really,
protecting.
He wasn't allowing anybody to see the Epstein files. I think it was the last hurrah, the last try. So what she said when I saw her on the news today is on Friday she got all these files, and they're all with Kash Patel over at the FBI, and the FBI is collating them.
That is nice. I like that a lot.
I will not believe it till I see it.
If it comes out, it's going to be damning for so many people, which I feel has to happen. Let the blood bleed. Somebody's gonna try really hard to assassinate this president. He's, you know what I mean?
Well, they've tried already.
I know, but man, I want him to have good security because it's like,
you know, the thing about these Epstein files is I figure most people, I'm going to exit, most people who are, it's slow connection, so I think it's, I think most people who are on that list are probably being blackmailed.
I agree. I mean, that's how
They're corporate people, world leaders, and sometimes I see somebody. Adam Schiff is a perfect example. That man does such ridiculous things, such blatant liar and behavior that it's not. It's just not normal.
Yeah.
That you would do something and say the things that he. So he's under somebody's thumb.
Yeah.
And, you know, ever since the Clintons went to D.C., a lot of people may not know this, and I'll put it up for reference, but one of the first things that they did when they got to D.C. is they ordered 850 raw FBI files of people in Congress so they could. Now, raw means that the FBI agent sat down with your ex-girlfriend who probably doesn't have anything good to say about you anyway, right? And it doesn't matter if what she said is true or not. It's the raw. That's what he... Okay. Maybe he looked at her, you know, there's no truth. Like, you know, I got to think for commies or whatever, you know.
Right.
But some of it's true, and they would use it as a way of swaying votes, and especially when the impeachment came up.
Right, right.
It was pretty well known that that's when they really used it. And there was an investigation into it. But the people who were looking into the files, was a PI guy from Little Rock and a bar bouncer.
And how did he get authorization to... No.
Exactly. Well, what they did was illegal anyway. You're not allowed to do that.
Yeah.
Even if you're president of the United States.
Yeah.
So you're not allowed to blackmail people. So I think ever since the Clintons got there, it became more and more the norm. And the honey potting and, we're looking at the USAID money.
Yeah.
It's not like $10,000 bribes or hundred. It's like millions and billions. I mean, there's something like 6,000 reporters around the world were getting money.
Yeah. Well, and there's the media agencies worldwide are owned by a select few now.
Yeah, it's consolidated.
Right.
So you don't need to even worry about that many.
Right. So, and it showed, like, for instance, when something comes up in South Dakota, California, Texas, New York, Florida, I mean, they have the local anchors, and they put them all saying the same exact thing. They're all coming off the
That came out today on X.
Okay.
The president's doing a speech tonight, right?
Yeah.
In Congress and State of the Union, and all the Dems recorded the same exact video, word for word. Word for word. I mean, with AI, at least you could change it a little bit.
Yeah.
Write me a script with these things, but it's word. So they've been making fun of them because there's dozens and dozens of people.
I guess I was lucky, I would call it lucky, to live in Miami Beach, Florida during COVID because everything was open air 12 months out of the year. following protocol. They kind of closed the beach down for 3 or 4 weeks for spring break to kind of, because they wanted to push them out, right? Because they didn't want the infection.
Kids
They didn't
coming
want,
down.
right. So
Good reason not to have the kids invade.
yeah.
I don't think anybody likes it.
The businesses never make money from spring break, and their places get trashed. They cause so many problems. I mean, the Miami residents have really pushed hard in electing the last 2 mayors to make sure that they want the spring breakers out of there.
Yeah.
Because they come down, they buy booze at the liquor store, they don't patronize the local businesses.
That they push paying customers. If
Yeah.
you're a nice restaurant,
Yeah,
these
you
kids
don't-
aren't going to hit your nice
right,
restaurant.
Right,
So
exactly.
now you don't have the kids eating there. The older, wealthy people are like,
Right. But at the time that COVID was full blown, they had TV was showing, and people were in lockdown, right? And they had TV showing these lines of people in line to get COVID and wearing masks. I'm like, that's just up the street. That looks like the Super Bowl. That doesn't look like now.
yeah.
And it literally showed on TV, and it was broadcast throughout the entire United States, maybe the world, of these lines that looked like they were miles long, bumper to bumper. And I went out, and I took my scooter, my little moped, and I drove up barren streets, and I got to that same parking lot that showed miles of cars with thousands of people. There was 2 cars. One of them was like a security or something. The other car, I don't think, probably a worker. I mean, the lot was empty. But TV was saying at that exact time that I was looking at an empty lot, that there was hundreds of thousands of people there. It was total fake, total bullshit, and total manipulation.
When COVID first hit, there was this nurse from Michigan who was saying how bad the hospital was, and there were patients in the hallways, and so I literally called the hospital, and they sent me to the PR person, and the PR person is, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And here she was, just, oh my God, it's terrible. COVID is,
Well, and I'm not saying. I mean, you lost your mom from COVID, probably.
Sure, but it could have been the flu. She was 86 and she had 7 comorbidities.
Right. So I'm not.
It wasn't like,
right.
oh, shocking, mom died, right? Of the last and final straw, but there were no kids dying of it. In fact, I did some research in Ohio. 11 kids during the whole pandemic died.
Yeah.
You know why?
Probably from the shot.
No, they were very obese.
Oh, yeah, that was a
Maybe
a
some
thing.
have died since the shot.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
since gotten, and that's coming out too. Finally,
yeah.
that people have more kids were affected by the shot than not getting it.
Yeah.
They just weren't dying, so why give it
Well,
to
and
them?
I brought up before that it's a known side effect. So I was a pilot, right? And 2 people I work with, they developed heart conditions from the vaccination, unfortunately. And it's well publicized. The government knows about it.
But people are getting shut down for saying this, sharing this, or you get banned from YouTube, you get banned from Facebook.
But that's why I'm excited about the Epstein files. Because have you seen that documentary?
No.
Oh, it's damning, and it's disgusting, and
now
it's
I'm going to tell you
scary.
something, and you got to keep in mind. I think it's the time. So before it was Epstein Island, it was owned by Amway, and when it was owned by Amway, I used to work out of St. Thomas in the BVI's. We went to the beach on there, a little fishing village.
Wow.
So I've been to Epstein Island just before Epstein was a thing.
So
that was in the
it's
late
pretty
80s.
It's pretty incredible the level of. I mean, this will be career-ending jail sentencing stuff if this comes out because the judge's one of the judge's children were killed during the trial. They
Oh yeah, I remember it was
Yeah.
a UPS guy
dressed as a UPS guy.
or FedEx guy.
Yeah,
They opened the
whoever-
door,
yeah,
shot
shot
the
him.
wrong person, wasn't it?
Shot somebody. I mean, I
That
believe,
probably worked though.
I think the judge. She resigned from the case after that. I mean,
Well, if it's true that all these people are on there, I'm sure there is pressure being applied once again to Bondi and the FBI and everybody else because these people have tons of money and tons of power, and they're not going to stop.
Right.
You know, I mean,
and the connections.
it will end their lives.
Yeah.
That list ends their lives. Now, and a lot of people already know. I mean, we're pretty familiar with names that have been on
Yeah.
that list. And from what I gather, one organization got all the metadata
Oh
from
yeah.
cell phones.
Yeah.
And they know who exactly these people are.
Yeah.
From the island.
Yeah.
To their house.
Yeah. Watch that documentary because it is concerning.
Well, his partner, she got
Just-
convicted.
Yeah.
Gazelle Maxwell.
Yeah.
She got convicted for supplying
Yeah.
underage kids to
Right.
somebody.
Well,
Right?
to him, but they also, I mean, you talk about sex trafficking, you talk about this world. You mean these people that they're like at the pinnacle of it. I mean, this is you want to tackle sex trafficking. Why don't we tackle the senators that are partaking in it?
The left has no interest in tackling sex trafficking at all. In fact, a lot of that immigration with the open doors, you know, there's something like 300,000 kids. They don't know where these kids are. 300,000.
Yeah, it's scary having kids and knowing that because, I mean, you know, a fear would be like, you know, I mean, I have 4 daughters. That's not a fun scenario because all it takes is some boy with a cute smile that's getting paid by somebody else.
And the kids never think about that.
Right.
You know.
Oh, I have a question I want to ask before I draw one. So I'm pretty moderate. I wouldn't call myself a hard Republican. In fact, sometimes I think I even lean more Democrat in a lot of areas, living in that California area for a couple of years and communicating with people from all over the world. However, I did not just watch the 15-second snippet of Trump and Vance putting Vladimir Zelensky in his place.
Yeah.
I didn't watch it. I watched the entire 56 minutes of it, which I'm going to go into this a little bit because everybody's like, did you, you know, they come up and they're like, did you see how they, okay, I want to say this right now because this is a bunch of bullshit about how the media trims it to their own agenda.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
So
You're
I
100%.
watched the entire thing. The entire thing was a regular meet and greet like they always do. They always do a meet and greet for press. I mean, he's coming, he wants pictures with his country. And it was a normal thing. And every time Trump tried to shut it down because he said, we're going to go do this deal out, you know, in the East Room after lunch. We're going to go to lunch. Every time he tried to shut it down, Zelensky was like, he's like, but I want to, he was trying to manipulate the press to saying, I'm going to have the U.S. is on my side. And Trump several times said, okay, I'm neutral. You know, he's trying to barter a deal between two people that hate each other.
Yeah.
Right? Two people that are killing each other's troops. He's trying to he's trying to mediate a
the
war.
meat grinder. Stop the meat grinder.
He's trying to stop a war, right?
Yeah.
And Zelensky kept saying, but the U.S. is on my side. He's like, no, and Trump tried to keep saying, no, I'm not on anybody's side. I need to stay neutral so I can mediate this. Because if I come out and say I'm on your side, well, I don't think Russia's probably going to talk much with us, right?
Well, no matter what he does, he's going to get criticized. And they're looking, not only are they looking for something to criticize him, they're making it up. You know, and that they've always been that way about Trump. And they're not going to stop. They're not going to quit.
Watch the full video on NPR.
Actually, I think one of these is...
So my only well, I actually have three. Three news sources that I will go to.
Pull one, because one of those is this subject.
Okay. The three news sources I will go to. I'll go to NPR, which people sometimes say, but NPR is pretty neutral. BBC is also pretty neutral. And Al Jazeera is extremely neutral.
Now, on perspective-wise, okay, I'm not a Republican at all.
Yeah.
And I've written a million times, I've disavowed them. I dislike the Democrats more.
Yeah.
I would say the BBC, the Al Jazeera, and who else did you say?
NPR.
Are three of the top most leftist news organizations that I could mention.
So
if you think they're moderate,
okay.
if you think they're moderate, which I understand you could, I would love to know what you think is leftist. Who would you like? MSNBC, is that left, or CNN?
Yeah, I would say maybe CNN a little bit, but Trump didn't like CNN anyway. So I mean,
why would they? Why? Right. I mean, most of the media, as we're seeing from U.S. aid money, including the BBC, including NPR, including Al Jazeera, probably. I don't know. I haven't heard it, but they probably did receive government money. So if you're a reporting organization receiving U.S. money, you're probably not telling the truth. Otherwise, you just wouldn't take the money.
Right, right.
You know. So if those organizations gave you the impression that it was a bunch of bullshit, it's true, because it's actually now it's gone full circle.
Right.
Read which one you have, because that actually might be.
So what I was saying is, if you're taking all your information off of the 15-second snippet that all these left news organizations are putting out,
well, that's where
you're misinformed. You're misinformed, because
don't you think they counted on that?
Right.
The attention span of the
right. There was so many times. Trump was very cordial for 50 minutes of the 56-minute time. And he was very cordial. And in fact, he tried to end it several times. And Vladimir kept saying, no, the American people need to know this. And
would you agree with, when I saw him, when he switched, to me it was sort of contrived. And then I learned, because right after it happened, my comment that I posted was, he got some really bad advice. So then I heard he had a meeting with the Democrats before it, and they all pushed, go in there and resist Trump. So why would they do that? I can tell you, I have a pretty good idea, but there was a reason he did that.
The whole 56 minutes, the majority of it was very cordial, and it was very obvious that this guy was, he kept like, he was talking about Vladimir Putin like he was an ex-wife. You know what I mean? He was just like, anytime he could say a jab or something like that, it's like, we get it.
Okay, well, this is a perfect example of how they talk about Putin. Okay, not my favorite guy. I've never met him. He has zero effect on my life at the end of the day. Always has had zero effect on my life. So It's from afar. I know a fair amount about Russian politics.
Right.
I know a fair amount about USSR. My ex is Russian, who lived in USSR, and I lived with 3 Russians and another. Actually, she might have been one of those countries, right?
Right.
So I'm familiar with how they think and how they feel and what bothers them. And if you compare, let's say, the head of China, Xi, right?
Yeah.
And to Putin, well, both of them were really terrible humans. It affected millions and millions of people in
Right.
very bad ways. Okay? Now, Putin is old USSR, which was communism, and Xi is current communism, right?
Right.
Well, we have no problem doing business with China.
Right.
In fact, Biden's library was paid for by China. 36 million. His son got millions and millions of dollars and a diamond from China. So this guy, who's obviously a piece of shit, is fine. But this guy, how dare you even talk to him?
Right.
Remember when Trump was going to meet with him and they were like, how you get, right? So what is going on here? Well, they don't want the secrets to get out.
Right.
And, Putin doesn't do us any favors. He's, buddy-buddy with Iran. He's helped Iran build their nuclear technology, which has been a thorn in everybody's tail all throughout the Middle East, giving Iran the nuclear bomb. So it's not like we're comparing apples and apples here. And they're making it up. That's what they do is whatever Trump wants. If Trump said that Putin was the worst bastard on the face of earth, CBS News would go, little Mr. Awesome Putin, how could he say that about, right? They would. They can only take the opposite of everything.
Yeah. But I don't watch the news very often.
Neither do I. I never watched.
But it was a perfect example because people were saying all this stuff. I'm like, so okay, let me see how he treated him. But I didn't just take the 15-second snippet. I watched the whole freaking 55 minutes. And guess what? Trump in the White House was very cordial, and that guy was very manipulative in pushing his agenda to the media.
Right.
So, I mean, there was so many
Trump
times.
is the most, whether you even absolutely hate the guy.
Yeah.
He is one of the best media guys out there. Yeah. He had a #1 TV show for 9 years.
Yeah.
You know who gets to do that? Almost no one.
Right.
That is so hard. You know that's hard to pull off.
Reagan did that.
Did he have a
well,
TV
not a
show?
TV show, but I mean, he was an actor,
Yeah, they always say it was a B. Yeah.
Well,
he was not probably. They always bring up that one with the monkey.
I don't know about one with the monkey.
Bozo.
Bozo, yeah.
They
funny.
always bring up that one. Like,
yeah. I know he did a lot of cowboy stuff, and he had his ranch out in Santa Barbara and stuff like that.
No, I'm a big fan of Reagan. When in the 80s I was 18, when he got, and that was just the best time of my life. The world I thought was cool,
I mean, the wall came down.
It didn't come down while he was president, but it came down because he was president.
Okay, so
because he started it, he went to the wall and said,
Mr. Gorbachev,
tear down this wall. Right.
I remember.
It didn't happen that day. It would happen under George Bush, I think.
Okay.
Senior.
Yeah.
But it happened, and I think what we thought was communism was dead. And it wasn't. It was just reorganizing.
Yeah.
Especially in America, apparently.
Right.
And that's sort of where we are, which is the left, I believe, has just gone so far left that they're not even fun anymore. They're miserable people. They're angry. Everything. They're angry at everything. Yeah. They're control freaks. They always want to impose how they want us to say certain pronouns and we got to accept.
Well, I have a
this.
perfect example. Our YouTube channel. Let's talk about it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, how could something as simple as this, a couple guys talking about politics, and how could YouTube go so far as to say no? We at one point we had 29,000 views,
On
and
one of
now
our
it's
shows,
and now what was our last one? They filtered it to like 6.
Yeah, right.
Right. My mom.
Yeah. And she
like-
was probably like cut off.
Right. It's a little disturbing.
It is, and for a while it got really bad there. People were just getting eliminated. There was one guy I followed, and he was very familiar with Wuhan lab.
Yeah.
And he was very familiar with COVID. And every day he'd do like an update for 15, 20 minutes. And I have a pretty good memory. I can tell you everything he said turned out to be true.
Right.
And they actually used CNN to destroy him.
Yeah.
And that's we're coming out of that malaise, I guess you could say, where the government went so far that I think overall the people really...
And the government's wrong so often. I mean, look at back in history when we imprisoned Japanese Americans, when we looked for communism so
when the
hard,
Democrats did.
when the communism was like all you had to do is, if you didn't like your neighbor's dog barking, you just have to call up somebody and say, I think he's a communist. You friggin' take him away in jail.
Well, and they're going through the same thing in Britain right now, where you can go to jail for reposting a tweet.
Yeah.
The cops are literally knocking on their door. Well, that's not good.
That was another thing you brought that up. So that was another thing brought up in the full 55-minute interview with Trump and Vladimir Zelensky that you don't hear. So in Ukraine, they're doing the same thing to even U.S. reporters. They're filtering it.
Plus,
and
they stopped the elections.
And if
they took over the #1 TV station.
But if you're a U.S. reporter and you post something that isn't in there, they can arrest you and put you in jail. And in fact, there's several U.S. reporters in jail right now in the Ukraine by Zelensky. And Trump saying, there's a reason why we don't just unilaterally support you. We're not aligned with you. You're not doing great things.
Ukraine has almost always been known for corruption.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't know this, in 2014, the CIA overthrew the elected government.
Right.
And have manipulated everything ever since.
Right.
So one of the agreements that the United States had with Russia is Ukraine would never become part of NATO because it's on their border, and if they became part of NATO, now we got a problem.
Right.
So what does Zelensky do? Hey, I want to join NATO. And Russia's like, no, you can't do that. He goes, oh yeah, I'm going to do that. Well, they just egged him on.
Yeah.
So it's not whether or not I'm cool with Putin invading Ukraine.
Yeah.
Or whether I think Ukraine should defend itself as a democracy, which it isn't.
Right.
Because if it was a democracy, they'd have elections, wouldn't they?
Right. Yeah. The whole thing is manipulated bullshit, and you really need to educate yourself. Don't watch 15 seconds of Fox News and tell me what you think. I don't like that. And that's
Totally agreed. Yeah, totally agreed.
That's a bunch of shit. It's a bunch of shit.
And yeah, absolutely.
It's on there. I watched it on NPR. You said NPR was left. I watched it on NPR.
NPR changed your mind. Maybe that's because they know they're going to get defunded. In boarding school, Stevenson, I took foreign policy, and the foreign policy was taught by Professor Lawrence, who was an advisor to JFK, John F. Kennedy. So he was an amazing guy, right?
Right.
And the thing he taught us, and we didn't have any internet. We had LexisNexis.
Yeah. Yeah.
We went to the Naval Academy,
Right.
and it was like the cool,
Yeah.
type it out answers. Anyway, what he said was, foreign policy is really complicated, and if you haven't brushed up on something in a few months, you don't know anything, because things will change
Right.
in 2 months. New government
Right.
comes in, left, right, all these things, and so when the war in Ukraine started, and people on Facebook that I know were putting up the Ukrainian flag, I'm like, this person doesn't know anything about foreign policy. Why are they behind this?
Right.
And I still, here we are, 4 years into it?
Yeah.
No one has explained to me, no one can explain to me what's the exit strategy.
Yeah.
Or here's another question. How will we know we won?
Yeah. Well, and I'll go a step deeper for people that really want to sympathize. Soccer moms, how about this? Okay. I lived in Miami Beach, Florida during the outbreak of the Ukraine-Russian war. And that area of South Florida has a very large Russian population, a very large Ukraine population, and everybody gets along really well because they're in frickin' South Florida and his life is pretty good.
Yeah.
Right? So the press and the politics wanted to press this issue of Ukraine flags and promote this agenda, and the public school system came out system-wide, Miami-Dade County, and they said no. They said, we have...
What are you doing?
We have beautiful Russian children, we have beautiful Ukraine children that are living a very loving, peaceful life, and you're trying to make conflict here? We're not going to hang a Ukraine flag in front of our public school in the U.S.?
Okay, here's no, you can't answer this question, but what if they hadn't done all that?
Well, you mean what if
we hadn't been manipulated and there was...
We're definitely being manipulated.
I know, but absolutely, but what if they hadn't done it? What if the U.S. government didn't pressure Facebook to turn flags on, and what if everybody in the U.S. Senate and Congress was like, war's terrible, people die, and why would we send billions and billions of dollars to a country that
I know exactly why. So throughout history...
No, why, but what would have happened if they hadn't done that?
Well, let's go why first, and then I'll go
Okay.
back. So throughout history, go back as far as you want. I don't care how far you want to go back. You can go all the way back. Most wealthy, whether it be individuals, corporations, banks, have always funded both sides of the war. And they've become extremely wealthy doing that. They love the conflict. They love it. Raytheon? What if it was always peace, love, kumbaya? Why do we need Raytheon? I mean.
Well, yes, I mean there certainly is a war machine back there,
and it's backed. It is
maybe
backed by
300 years ago. It was like, yeah, I make bows and arrows. I have a bows and arrow company.
Well, I'm
damn French,
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, most of the time, if you go back in history, the banks and the financial institutions have funded both sides of the war at the same time.
Yeah. Well, are they trying to play it safe, or they know they'll come out ahead either
They know
way?
they're going to come out ahead either way because whoever wins, they're just like, see, we gave you a lot of money. Here's some
I mean,
more.
to the Ukrainians and to the Russians and to the people on Earth, what war is not good for anybody. War.
How many billions are missing in Doge from the Ukraine fund?
Well, which is amazing. He claims out of the 175 billion, he only got 75 billion.
Right.
So now he's asking for another 250 billion. So if you apply that math, right? He's
smart enough to know if he keeps the war going, he creates himself another $100 billion of wealth.
Well,
I'm not a fan of. I'm not a fan.
Probably not that much. He's probably not putting away that much. But there are a lot of reports of the bigwigs of Ukraine, like in the Alps, skiing, and he apparently bought a few houses in those countries.
Yeah, and
what does he do when it all ends?
Yeah, exactly. He wants to keep it going. Otherwise, he'd have a ceasefire and he could end it. He could.
No, but he also could have allowed elections.
He could have allowed elections. He could have negotiated a peace agreement with Russia, which he said failed 25 times. I get that. But Trump was being very businesslike. He was saying, we want to invest in your rare earth.
Let's say it did fail 25 times.
Yeah.
So?
Right.
So what?
So this is a different opportunity.
You keep going. And probably not with Trump in there. With actually, when I'm guessing the 25 failures, the guy was Biden. It wasn't even Biden. It was Susan Rice or
whoever, yeah,
behind the scenes.
So, but the interesting thing was he didn't really want a ceasefire. I'm talking about Vladimir Zelensky. He wanted backing of military force. He didn't want it to end. He's like, no, I want U.S. to align with me, keep this war going. And Trump was saying, no, I'll invest, we'll have U.S. interest in your country, we'll protect our interests, and it would be an agreement because...
I don't know if this is true, because, there's so much shit on the damn internet, you can't really...
Right.
Time hasn't told me it's true, but it sounds true, which is before Trump was inaugurated, Zelensky made a deal with England on the the rare earths. So he'd already sold.
I think he left. I think he left without a deal. I think Zelensky left without a deal because Trump was going to offer him a deal to.
He did well. Did you pull it?
I didn't pull it yet.
Oh, you didn't? Okay.
No, it's right here. I got it.
Okay, read it. Read that one because one of them deals with this because it changed the last couple hours.
Canadian Premier threatens to cut off U.S. electricity exports with a smile on my face as Trump trade war rages. They need to feel the pain.
That's not the one I was thinking, but that's an interesting one. Okay, so here was Trump's demand originally, was secure the border. We're tired of terrorists coming in, fentanyl. Secure the border.
Right.
So they pretty much went, yeah, screw you, we're not going to do that. So he's like, okay, well, then I'll just do tariffs and until you agree. So instead of going, you know what, maybe we shouldn't allow terrorists and fentanyl to pour into the U.S. Instead of doing that, they came up with all this contorted, we're going to... Meanwhile, I don't know if people, and we'll put it up here, but there's already tariffs on our stuff that goes into Canada.
Yeah. May I?
Yeah, have at it.
So for a long time, there's been tariffs. Try and buy a pair of Levi's blue jeans down in Mexico. I worked as a flight instructor in Brownsville, Texas. the boss of the company didn't have very many rules, but he said, don't go next to those guys. I'm like, what are they running? Cocaine, they're running, whatever they do. You know what they're doing? They're flying blue jeans illegally from the U.S. into Mexico. They were blue jean running. You know what I mean? It was like, cocaine's coming this way, but we're running blue jeans down that way.
That's important. Yeah, right.
But they were loading up these Cessna Caravans to the brim, flying Levi's 501s down to Mexico.
I like 501. Yeah. Very comfortable.
But crazy enough, tariffs have existed at least since the 90s. That I know of in Mexico.
Oh,
you don't
sure.
talk about it, but
yeah, they have tariffs on all sorts of things, and most
Right.
we are one of the lowest. So everybody's like, oh, but we've always been known as free trade. Well, okay, but if it's hurting you,
NAFTA
if it's
didn't do anything
sucking
good for
money out of the U.S. economy, and it's hurting Americans, then I thought free trade. I was all for NAFTA when I was younger. I didn't really know I don't think anybody saw what was coming from it. It sounded like a reasonable thing to be behind. But you know what? If you already have tariffs on my stuff, like American cars do not go into Europe because the tariffs are too high.
Right.
Well, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. So what happens when they say they're not going to... They're going to add tariffs. You know what these companies are doing? They're moving manufacturing in the United States.
Yeah.
Which means U.S. jobs, U.S. investment.
Yeah.
I got to say, it's brilliant.
I tell you.
I mean, a lot of people are totally against it, but I don't think they thought it through.
I'm a airline pilot. Guess where some of the Airbuses are built? Alabama.
To get around. Well, it's also a vessel, so isn't there licensing or where the vessel was? That's boats. Does it apply to planes?
Probably applies to planes too.
So there is a law, and I'll look it up. There's a law, like if you want to do a commercial boat in the United States, for passenger boat, it has to be made in the United States.
Okay.
Or the U.S. Coast Guard won't license it.
So
yeah, that's the ultimate tariff.
Right.
Like, we're not going to take anybody's boat.
Right.
Only made here.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So
I'll look that up because I used to work on charter boats down in St. Thomas.
Yeah.
That was a known thing. That certain boats have to be made in certain places.
Right.
Plus, this is a funny story. I met these guys who bought the old Hilton yacht on Lake Mead for one of the casinos, the Hilton, and so they take the VIPs out of this boat. Well, it got old and whatever. They sold it off, and these three guys bought it, but it didn't have to be commercially licensed by the Coast Guard for that use. It was really difficult to get a license so that they could do charters on that boat.
Yeah. So a lot of the corporate aircraft worldwide are licensed in the U.S., even Hong Kong,
In
Asia,
Delaware.
Russia. A lot of the big-time corporate stuff is licensed in the U.S. for tax reasons. So, I knew a guy personally that was paid $500,000 a year to be a pilot for a Russian family, and the reason why they needed him is they needed a U.S. licensed pilot with a U.S. airplane to fly their family wherever they wanted to go. So.
Yeah, that probably makes it easier when it's a certain flag from certain countries.
Right.
And probably some kind I don't know what restriction. Well, Russia would be terrible now, I'm sure. Because
I've actually trained, I've trained several Russian pilots, even during this whole time where we're supposed to have all these tariffs. And I trained some Russian pilots the other week, and it talked about like these sanctions and stuff. They're like, come over to Russia. You got Rolls Royces. The restaurants are doing amazing. They said the only thing that those tariffs hurt are the poor people. You know, I mean, it's like less welfare for
Russia's
the poor
very
people.
used to poor people.
Yeah.
They're good at that.
All right, they're good at
Okay, what do we got here? Zelensky
Okay.
calls Oval Office meeting regrettable. Says he is ready to negotiate. Thanks, Trump.
I think I think before anybody makes a decision on this, watch the whole thing. I think
Well, the
Trump
fact
did
that
an amazing
the
job.
fact that Zelensky's coming back with his tail between his legs,
Oh.
and Trump's going, who? I think we know who won this gambit. And as much as the media tried to make Trump look bad, Trump isn't like, oh, Zelensky, I'm sorry how it went down.
Yeah,
Come back."
exactly. Yeah.
Instead, and Zelensky went around and, you know, with
Yes,
his begging.
Zelensky openly said, "I don't care. He's like, I can defend myself. Ukraine can defend itself.
Right.
We have France. We have Great Britain.
Well,
Trump is like
you
saying,
know how much Great Britain's committed to?
yeah, not enough.
2.5 billion.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
In Ukraine war terms, that's like 3 days, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. It's like let's see how this works out.
Yeah.
I mean, I want Ukraine to be independent and have their own voice, which also means getting rid of Zelensky. Or at least having a freaking election.
Yeah, there's no way you can even call it a democracy
No.
until they behave like one.
Yeah.
And, you know, I often say this, but we're not a democracy. We're a constitutional republic. Democracy is just on the edge of communism. It's, you know, it's group rule, right?
Right.
So all you need is a tiny fraction
Yeah.
of somebody to go, oh yeah, I'm with all those, and everything is what those guys say,
Right.
versus the representative government we have now. Or
Frankie
sort of
loves
have
me.
now.
So, you look like a women's basketball player. Not appropriate unless you saw the. Not appropriate.
Gender?
Yeah, not appropriate unless you saw the beginning of the show. So, but okay, Frank.
Well, we got one more.
All right.
Let's hit it. Yeah, I'm old too. Okay. Doge and HHS an $18 million contract with Family Endeavors for empty facility.
You'll have to fill me in. I'm not
Okay,
familiar.
so there was this overflow building
Okay.
that, in case there was just too many migrants, legals, someplace to put them, but they never needed it.
Okay.
So they got $18 million per month.
I can expand on that.
And again?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, when I was flying, we used to have our long layovers in New York City were downtown New York. And we stayed at the historic Roosevelt Hotel. Named after President Roosevelt, who had been there, because you got some serious history in New York, right? This amazing, beautiful lobby, several stories tall. Christmas time, they would put up this amazing tree. You know, the decor, you were blocks from Times Square, so if you were there during the holiday season, I mean, just an amazing experience. The Roosevelt Hotel has now been closed for several years. In its new role, it houses illegal, they're not even migrants, they're illegals. And the problem with the difference between migrant and illegals is illegals can't work at all. They can't legally work.
Right.
So what they do is they go hang out, and if you're not allowed to work, you probably get bored. So you hang out outside, or you hang out inside, or you hang out and young juvenile, anything.
There's mischief.
And they start fights. They start, and they can't make any money to support things.
Plus, none of them have been vetted. So
correct.
He could be a felon. He could be a child molester.
But the entire 29-story hotel done. It was a beautiful hotel. It was a 46-story hotel, because I remember that because the rooftop had a rooftop bar called Mad 46, and you could see the entire New York City skyline there. Done. Gone. Never to be seen again. I mean, it would cost more than the hotel is worth to refurbish it now.
There's a movie called Idiocracy.
Yeah, I've seen it.
You have?
Yeah.
Is there any difference?
It seems like we're there.
Right. I mean, people have just accepted the most ludicrous things. They're like, don't even seem to be bothered by it. A certain amount of the population is not bothered by...
There's a huge percentage of the population. If you're watching, shame on you. Because if you're not bothered by this stuff,
right,
shame on you. Watch Idiocracy and compare yourself to it.
Yeah, really.
Right?
That is where our institutions are with that DEI stuff, is Idiocracy, which is, instead of having the best engineer, we got to have the one-armed Indian gay trans engineer, right?
Right.
Not the best. Now, if that dude was the best engineer,
yeah,
I could care less.
But
if you want to put him in there only because of all those other things,
yeah,
then we're screwed.
Right.
And that's what's I've been having, with with all the pilot problems, and I mean, so that flight that flew into Canada. Okay, I'm pretty sure that's the first landing, upside down landing. I don't remember any other upside down landings. Do you?
They said it was the thing that saved them is the wings were actually ripped off because the fuel is stored in the wings.
Down.
Well, the wing, all the
fireball,
the fuel is stored in the wings, so the wings ripped off and probably saved.
That's what she was trying to do on purpose, right? Yeah. But both pilots were not men, and the whole airline boasted that it was an all-female airline. So
not an all-female airline. That's got to be incorrect. It's not an all-female airline.
That's what they boasted.
No, that's
they
not.
even
That's not
show
correct.
the lady fueling it.
It wouldn't be an all-female airline. All-female crew probably.
Nope, they're saying the whole airline.
No, impossible. I know the airline. It's not. It's not.
No, it's a major airline that contracts with a small.
Well, the airline was Endeavor, and I know that Endeavor. I know for a strong fact that it's probably mostly white males. It's diversity and inclusion. I guarantee you, if we ran the numbers, it is probably.
They even have a promo commercial saying.
I'm sure. I mean, I support.
So were they just doing that?
I think it's smear or
brownie points.
No, I think it's just bullshit. Whatever.
Maybe. Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure the airline is probably 90% white male. Not because it's just in the aviation industry. It's probably 90% white male. I mean, just by nature. I mean, if you're a female, it's kind of a shitty job, actually, to be a pilot. You're going to be gone away from your family half the month, As a man, you can justify it by saying, well, I'm supporting my family and my wife.
It's a little more acceptable. Yeah.
Providing enough abundance
Not
for...
that it doesn't become a problem, because I'm sure it does,
the,
right?
well, divorce.
Well,
You know,
plus you're staying in beautiful hotels
right.
with stewardesses also staying in.
Right.
Like,
right. I mean, it's like, I didn't see a lot of it.
It's got to be fraught with
I didn't
temptation.
see, well, maybe temptation, but I didn't see the entire time of my career. I only saw a few, I mean, and I'm really talking like 3 of like serious affairs, and it was intentional on both sides. You know what I mean? It was long-term affairs that they would like bid their trips together and want to.
We had neighbors in California, and he was a pilot, and she was a stewardess, and they decided to adopt a baby. And they didn't realize, because they had different schedules, they didn't really like each other. So she was in with the baby, and they were divorced in a year.
Yeah, it's pretty funny you said that, because I mean, as a pilot, I was gone half the time, and if your spouse is only there half the time, and you're sleeping part of that time, you really only have to get over, hours a week,
Yeah.
and it's interesting that, I mean, the divorce rate's pretty high in that industry.
Well, and there's like same with the food business.
Yeah, exactly.
The
Same
chefs
thing. Same thing.
Chefs are working when everybody else is home
Right.
having a great time.
Right.
Thanksgiving, Easter, Mother's Day,
Right.
nighttime.
Yeah. My one of my daughters, her dad was a chef in the local area, and the only time that she could see him is he would get up after working late into the night, 2, 3 in the morning, right? By the time you get your restaurant cleaned up, the only time he would see his daughter is if he got up and had breakfast with her. So.
Well, should we call tonight an end?
I think we could.
Why?
So-
Wait, hey,
Do we have anything else in the hat?
I'm empty.
Empty in the hat, almost empty in the
hat.
glass.
Well, it was good
So-
wine.
I
The
enjoyed the
dogs
wine.
actually behaved.
Right? Thanks to your eBay purchase, right? Or is that on even?
I got it on eBay.
Is it on?
No, it's not. So it
So-
has,
so
it
they were
is
just-
on. But they haven't barked. So.
No, they didn't.
Woof! Woof!
Oh,
See,
I
they
heard
go.
it.
Yeah, I heard it. See, they're all like,
They're all
Yeah.
curious. So, all right. We don't need to terrorize them. So. Well, cheers, everyone.
good night, everybody. Thanks for watching.
Dog's Red Wine. This is the only place you get your news source from now on.
Yeah, maybe.
Right?
We had to do
Right?
like live breakfast. every
Right?
day.
Forget NPR. Forget BBC. Forget Al Jazeera.
He's right. You
right?
should.
We'll give you everything you need to know from now on. We're the only police. You don't listen to anybody else.
No one else. We're it. And we're not paid. Yet.
Cheers to
night.
Dog's Red Wine.